Hello, welcome back for part 3 of painting this dragon. We're going to look at finishing this painting now with some colour. I've used a yellow, gold and sort of green colourway for the example that I'm going to demonstrate. But you could also use, say, some pink, some red, or any other colour you fancy really. The thing to remember is you want to apply the colour thinly for this painting, as if you were using it like a watercolour, so a sort of a thin wash technique, not a heavy application, because we want the ink work to show through. So let's have a look at the colours that we're going to be using. I've got out yellow number 218 in the Marie's Chinese Painting Colours box, a dark blue, and in the Marie's this is indigo blue number 495, and finally a reddish brown, which in the Marie's Chinese Painting Colour set is number 684. Now I have some of those colours out on my palette or plate from previously painting, and they've gone a little bit hard, but we can wet them and reuse them for this painting because we're using the colours thinly like a wash, so we don't have to worry about them, you know, having perhaps set on the plate from a previous painting session. I'm also going to use a soft white haired brush but to apply the colour, but if you don't have that, just use whatever Chinese painting brush you have. And this is a medium-sized brush, which means it's about 2.5 to 3 centimetres hair length. So I've cleaned that up and I'm going to start mixing the yellow. Let's start loosening up that yellow. And then I'm going to go into the brown, the burnt sienna, a little bit to warm that colour up so that it's sort of more of a gold colour. And you can see that the colour is quite thin, like a sort of a translucent wash. It's not a thick paint today that I'm using. So let's get the painting over with some weights on it and get started. Now when you're using the watercolour wash, the paint thinly in a wash technique, it's a good idea to have a clean paper towel positioned over your work, ready to blot in case the paint runs and spreads on the paper further than you were anticipating. So have that in position and then we can start applying the colour. And I'm not going to apply it in a sort of a broad wash sort of strokes. I'm going to apply it more in a sort of a dabbing technique, really, because of the very absorbent nature of the paint. It's easier to keep control of the paint if you use a sort of a dabbing technique rather than moving the brush more broadly. So the idea is not to sort of fill all the shapes in. Leaving areas of unpainted paper works much better in this style than sort of carefully filling the whole thing in. You can see I'm just dabbing the colour on where I want it. So that's sort of put a bit of that yellow on his face. I'll probably put some on his spines here as well. If you see that the paint is creeping too near towards, say for example, the eyes that you want to leave white, bring your kitchen towel paper down and give it a good blot, and that will stop it from going any further. I will come down the front here as well. This yellow can be taken down the front area here. And I think that's about it for the yellowy gold colour. So I'm now going to switch to some greenish colour. So I've got yellow still in the brush. So to mix the green, all I need to do is start to dip into this dark blue a little bit. And that will quickly form a green. So continuing in the same sort of way, I'm going to put a little bit of green onto this area of the scales. But again, it's more of a dabbing action. I'm not sort of covering the whole of the thing with paint. Another thing that you can do is, if you like me, you've got a little bit of water in the heel of the brush here, which is the part that's nearest the handle. When you get to the area here where the dragon is sort of disappearing into the clouds, if you drop the brush down, you can use that water in the heel of the brush to diffuse the wash, dilute the wash, so that it sort of appears to that the dragon is starting to disappear in the cloud. I'm going to put a little bit of that green on his face as well, but I am going to have my cloth in position just so that I can make sure I preserve that eye area as white. I don't want that to get paint on it. So that's most of the colour on there. I think he needs a little bit of pinkiness towards the mouth area, so I'm going to wash my brush and change over to that. So give that a good wash. And let's switch to because I'm trying to limit the colours that I use here, I'm going to switch back to that brown and use that as in place of an actual pink in this painting. When you're doing this style of Chinese brush painting, it's best to limit yourself to, you know, 2 or 3 colours, a maximum really of 5, ideally, in one painting. Because this gives you a much more harmonised effect in your painting, and it means that it doesn't, the colour then doesn't overtake the ink work that you've done, and sort of squash that out of the painting, as it were. So again, let's have that blotter in position. I want to go round that tooth there, that little snaggle tooth that I put in, so I need to preserve that with by not letting the paint run on there. So I may need to do a bit of blotting once I've got this colour on there. That's that one. Now you could put some colour into the cloud. I did do that on the pink one, so let's have a look at that. So I've rinsed the brush out so that I've got a nice clean water in the brush, not dirty water but clean. And then I'm going to just tip put the very tip of the brush into that brown, so that I've got a little bit of colour in the tip and then a lot of water, and I can sort of use that to put some, I usually call this a halo, around some of those cloud forms. So when you're doing a painting and you want something in the painting to be white and the paper is white, as it is here, one of the ways you can make that the white things stand out is to do this, what I call a halo technique. So where you put the brown, a very delicate brown wash around the white object, and it will make that white object appear whiter than the paper. It's a bit of an optical illusion really, but it's quite a nice one that works quite well in this style of painting. So that's gone round the outside of the clouds, where he's emerging from the cloud here, or she. We can put a little bit there to sort of suggest a shadow where he's coming through the clouds. When I switch hands, it's so that hopefully I'm not masking what I'm doing, so that you can see on camera. It's not necessary that you switch hands to do that. It's just to try and give you a better view of what I'm doing. So the very tip of the brush with that very weak paint goes up sort of to the outline that you've drawn, and then you sort of use the water, all that water that you've got in the brush, to help to diffuse that colour out. So you can see I'm not using the brush on tiptoe, I'm using it on its side, so that that water in the brush is being used to diffuse that wash, that line, so that it blends that line away, that fine brown line away, so that you don't get a sort of a heavy transition. So I'm imagining sort of shadows now in the clouds, and I'm using this as the brown as sort of the shadow in the clouds. It's one of those things where you really need to be careful to not overdo how much paint you've got on the brush. You want very subtle application of paint on the brush, because you can always come back and put more on if you feel it's too weak later on, but you can't take it away with Chinese brush painting. So that, I think, finishes our painting of the dragon coming through the clouds there. I hope you've enjoyed this demonstration and have been able to follow along if you wanted to. and I hope to see you again for some more painting. In the meantime, if you would like to look at some of my work, you can go to etsy.com/shop/Anne Fairchild Art, where you can see some more of my work.